In front of the first four gates, Muko Ikusaba made her way forward, luckily managing to avoid Ogami and Owada. She proceeded uninterrupted to the second largest space in the school after the gymnasium, the entrance hall with the sealed gates. And as soon as she arrived, Mono Bear popped out from the shelves and stood in her way, his silhouette entirely out of place in the hall, resembling a nuclear bunker, heavy artillery and all. He twisted his balloon-like body, snickering condescendingly. Oop, boop, boop, boop. I wonder what kind of fun you were having in the infirmary. Do you take care of your rival and love, or do you wish them a happy marriage? Either way, don't you think our nice guy Naegi standing side by side with Kirigiri makes for a wonderful picture? If this were a thriller, they'd be the last surviving couple. Well, I guess they'd still die at the end, though. The serial killer turns out to have been alive after all. Splat goes their blood, plop goes their skin. I'm a huge fan of bait and switch. You thought you were alive, but death-ending nations. Wait, where'd nation come from? Mana Bear complained angrily, but Ikusaba was not shaken. She glared at him, cold and sharp as a sharp of ice, as though waiting for him to continue. Oop, boop, boop, boop. That's right, I'm so unbearably sad. Our peaceful school life is being overturned by a delinquent, rule-breaking teenager. Say goodbye to your failure of a headmaster. I'm going to Monobear evolve into a big magnum headmaster and bring you back to the straight and narrow, young lady. As soon as he finished speaking, Monobear drew his steel claws and peered proud towards Ikusaba. And if I want to bring you back, then that must mean I have to kill you first. Just before he ended his sentence, Monobear sped up in the blink of an eye. And charged at Ikusaba like a missile. She had no problem dodging this attack, but Ikusaba put slightly more distance between herself and Monobear in case his claws could be extended. But yet another figure appeared beside her. Ikusaba twisted her body to the limit as she evaded the newcomer's attack by a hair's breadth. When she landed on the floor again a moment later, she was greeted by a surreal scene. Oop, boop, boop, boop. So what does our immortal killing machine want? Are you going to tell the others the truth and escape the school? Even though you know what's raining outside, two Monobear units were saying the same thing to her at the same time. You know, I don't really care if you do. I bet it'll be amazing and exciting to see their faces. What's their relief at surviving turns to despair at reality. They'll be scrambling to come back inside, the two Monobears said in stereo sound. You say you destroy my plans, but there's no way you can reach the good ending. You're one of the people who sealed off that route in the first place. You know, there's no way they're gonna thank you, right? You can all step out together, but you won't be able to act so high and mighty once they start breathing in that polluted air. Forget forgiveness. Some of them might be angry and try to come back inside, and some of them might blame you for telling them the awful truth. But then again, you are to blame for everything. Sorry. Mana Bears made a little mistake. Even though Ikusaba was facing down two difficult opponents, her mask did not crack. She had understood that Junko and Oshima could control two Mana Bear units at once with ease. Taking out an arm-length metal pipe from seemingly nowhere, she took a fine stance. It was the bot that had once been intended for blood transfusion purposes, reshaped it to a sharp weapon. That's alright, I'm used to it. None of the fears she showed when Mana Bear claimed Naegi might get mad at you showed on her expression. Having truly cast it all aside, Ikusaba plainly made her demands of Mana Bear. Open the gates, Junko. The Mana Bear stood in silence for a moment. Ew. At the surprisingly straightforward request, they then replied, "What? Why?" That way we can all leave together. It was yet another forthright answer. The two Mana Bears posed themselves as though they were whispering into each other. Knowing the action was intended to insult her, Ikusaba continued to speak to Junko, who was controlling the bears. I believe they'll all understand once I show them the outside world, and then they won't suspect Naegi-kun anymore. Say, Miss Disappointing Sister, do you not get why we have an air filtration system in this school? The air outside is unhealthy, but it's not immediately lethal. Probably. It's still miles better than living in this school, killing each other one after another, I think. How can you be so sure of that? You know I'm talking about, right? Before the former headmaster got tossed into outer space and turned into a star child, everyone had a one-on-one interview with him and agreed to stay in the school. Are you sure you want to betray their wishes? Ikusaba blinked, slowly putting one foot forward. I don't really care about how they feel. What? Junko, you're all I have, so don't worry, little sis. I'm always looking at you, so I swear I'm going to make you despair. I swear I'll make Naegi-kun and everyone else happy, so when you find joy in that despair, I'll trust in Naegi-kun's help and bring my eyes back to you, Ikusaba said, hesitant but firm. The Mana Bears looked at one another again and began speaking to each other. My goodness, this won't do at all. Mana Bear A, does this girl not understand her own hypocrisy? Her disappointing side's gone all sparkly and exploding, Mana Bear B. The two bears turned around towards Ikusaba, who was ready to destroy them, and they spoke at once. What do you think, Mana Bear C? Their question confused Ikusaba for a moment, but instincts alerted her to dodge to the side. A third Mana Bear steel claws raised passed by where her head had been only a moment ago. The new unit landed with a spectacular spin. He turned to Ikusawa, who was holding herself against the ceiling with the remains of a surveillance camera in her arms. Just the same as you, A and B, the three mama bears stood in a row. It would be the kind of sight that was nothing short of a nightmare for the students locked in this school. Of course, oop, boop, boop, boop. The three units spoke together, all six eyes looking up at Ikusawa. A split second later, they leapt in three different directions and each kicked off one of the walls. Naturally, the mutual target of their triangular attack was Ikusawa clinging to the ceiling. Their claws flew towards her from different directions, as though in an attempt to corner her, but an assault of this caliber did not even constitute a fair claim for Ikusawa. Clinging to the ceiling with one arm, she expertly spun her feet and fists around like a twister. The mana bears fell to the floor with a crash. Ikusawa did not lose this chance. She pursued them, landing on the floor and swinging her metal pipe. She suddenly halted and took a step back. One of the mana bears exploded with a deafening blast. He had used the bomb inside of himself to try and take Ikusawa with him, but Ikusawa's honed instincts commanded her to avoid the explosion before she knew it was coming. Ikusawa turned her attention to the hallway for a moment, wondering if the sound of the explosion could allure Ogami and the others to the battle, but she did not hear any footsteps coming in her direction. And from amidst the smoke, Monobear's voice taunted her. "Oh, don't worry, I told the other students to gather in the cafeteria. All I had to say was that I disarmed the poison gas setup and that a special police team was on their way. I bet they're all huddled up together with Kirigiri and the others, Naegi too." I doubt Ogami would hurt him, but I bet someone like Togami might go so far as to torture Naegi once he wakes up, rubbing salt or soy sauce in his wound. Just thinking about it makes me all hot. Yeah. Ikusawa tilted her head slightly at Monobear's overlapping voices. "They're going to find out you were lying about the police. Is that really okay?" "It's no problem at all. Once I've taken care of you, they can find out everything's a lie for all I care. Oop, boop, boop, boop. Don't you get it? How disappointing." Ikusawa finally noticed something, not the reason Monobear did not care about the other students learning the truth, but the fact that the number of overlapping Monobear voices was slowly increasing. Oop, boop, boop, boop. Oop, boop, boop, boop. The smoke began clearing. 3 mana bears were standing before. The one that had exploded could not have fixed itself, which meant that a new unit had come to take its place. But the number of voices Ikusawa could hear were clearly more numerous. And as though providing her sense of hearing accurate, the mana bears moved at once. The 3 units bent forward simultaneously, spinning their upper bodies around, and from behind them emerged yet more monobear units. Like shadows come to life, the second row of monobears mimicked their predecessors with a single frame of delay, revealing yet more monobears behind them. Ultimately, Ikusawa cut approximately 10 units in each of the 3 lines. Oop, boop, boop, boop. Just to let you know, this move of mine is called a circle dance. Ever heard of it? 3 monobears flaunt their irrelevant knowledge all at once. Ikusawa had known that multiple monobear units were present all over the school, but only Junko and Oshima had an idea of exactly how many of them were in existence. There was no telling how much of the total number these 3 units constituted. The massive monochrome spun round and round, making it look as though they were projecting a hypnotic image from 3 directions. But Ikusawa remained expressionless. In fact, the bizarre sight unfolding before compelled the super high school level soldier to regain her focus. She was an entirely different person from the girl who had panicked at Naegi's injury in the gymnasium. Breathing slowly, Ikusawa faced down the 3 units of despair and allowed her heart to race. It was not out of fear, but the instincts carved into her. Her cells sped up their functions as her heart began pumping blood rapidly through her entire body. Her senses grew sharp as the monobears began speaking to her again. Don't worry, I'm going to let Naegi live. After all, as long as they're all alive, I can reset their memories all I want. What? Oop, boop, boop, boop. That's why all of your efforts and hopes and dreams and determination are going down the toilet. The monobears spoke 10 at a time, alternating between sentences. It was as though the mastermind controlling them was flaunting her ability to puppet them as she desired. But the super high school level soldier understood the intention behind this action. Her ears, strained to their limits, had picked up the sound of movement between the voices of the monobears. Ikusawa kicked off the floor, her mask never faltering. The moment she moved aside, a powerful noise shook the entrance hall as the firearms installed on the ceiling pumped out bullets like no tomorrow. The monobears were just a distraction the mastermind was using in order to shoot Ikusawa down. And as if to corner her further, the monobears charged through the storm of bullets towards Ikusawa. Not a single unit was hit by bullets because Junko had programmed their movements in line with the guns in the vents. Ikusawa guessed. She darted before the gates, obeying calls and bullets every step of the way. The act of calculating her dodges and programming the monobears and guns to react accordingly was probably impossible for most people, but Ikusawa knew it to be possible for Junko. It was because Junko possessed despair-inducing talent at super high school level despair. She would surpass the limits of humanity in order to bring despair upon Ikusawa. The scene unfolding before her eyes was despair itself. The half-adorable, adorable, half terrifying Mana bears danced before like reapers flanked by a storm of bullets. It was an ostentatiously despair-inducing sight, all created for Muko Ikusaba alone. But Ikusaba was feeling almost surprisingly uplifted. All of this for me? Junko is going so far just for me? Junko, are you looking at me? In the end, perhaps Junko's nickname of disappointment was a perfect fit for Ikusaba. She tightened her fist. Thank you, Junko. With a single whisper that was drowned out by the sound of gunfire, Ikusaba went completely silent. Thanks to her status as a member of Super High School level despair, her heart was filling with joy, and as if to offset the sudden surge of emotions, the sparkle in her eyes disappeared. Silence surrounded her, and even the gunfire ceased for a moment. But this was only the impression held by the mastermind behind Mono Bear. Something powerful enough to silence the overpowering gunfire, which not even Mono Bear's sensors could measure, had rippled out through the school with Muko Ikusaba at the center. As the center. I'm going to do this properly. With this final thought, even her emotions came to silence. The air froze around her as she bored through the gaps between the bullets. And at the same time, her heart also froze over, transforming itself into a machine. It took only several seconds for her body and mind to melt and become one with the air around them, covering the battleground with her temperature. The entrance hall was a despair-inducing space where it rained bullets and monobears were occupying every inch of the room, but Ikusaba predicted their every movement and leapt into the air without a hint of hesitation. A monobear unit jumped up with its claws raised, always prepared for jump, but she effortlessly dodged the attack, using the unit as a stepping stone and flying through the air. Bullets flew at the place where she had been only a moment ago and struck the falling monobear unit, internally installed explosive and all. The force of the impact caused a chain reaction, sending another monobear unit flying with sparks trailing from his body. Ikusaba used the force of the blast to balance herself in midair, knocking down 2-3 monobears that leapt up at her. It was as though she were capable of flight. In contrast to Ikusaba's expert movements, the monobears elected to jump into the way of the bullets, exploding one after another in a rhythmical fashion. Several of them exploded by the gates, but the heavy door was not even scratched by the blast. Having taken control over the entire entrance hall, Ikusaba dodged the bullets and recognized the state of the door. There was no way to destroy it with just the bombs installed in the monobear units, but she did not stop. Ikusaba's intent was to find out how they could escape the school. She was not going to kill Junko and Oshima. She would merely grant her despair by bringing hope into the futures of Naegi and the others. And because this was her ultimate goal, she would stop at nothing to ask Junko how to leave. But in contrast to her determination, Ikusaba's mouth remained shut. This did not mean, however, that she was not communicating with her sister. After all, this very situation, the tug of war of death and destruction was as good as a conversation for her. Bao was all Muko Ikusaba knew. It was impossible for her to take an interest in or even need anything else, she believed. She would be happy to serve as the blade that would satisfy her sister's desire for despair. This was everything to Ikusaba, and all this time she had told herself she was incapable of anything else. This was why this power was her language. A bow to the death was as good as a heartfelt speech for Ikusaba. She would feel the violence roaring through the bow with her hopes, facing down enemies who communicated in much the same fashion. It was the same way even when she faced her own sister. Ikusaba was powerless to retaliate, and a bow of words against Junko and Oshima, always left to cower and apologize. But things were different now. For what seemed to be the first time in their lives, Junko was communicating to her in the language of power. The god of despair who had brought the world to its knees was speaking Ikusaba's language. Joy lit up her heart, but this compelled her to focus even more on the conversation at hand. Her face was the picture of stoicism as she continued engaging her opponent on the ice-cold battlefield. The school's own firearms spouted countless rounds, Dagon, of despair, but Ikusaba's words shot down Rampa, every last one of the terrible violence that threatened to eat away at her. Ikusaba soon realized that the number of mana bears was not decreasing no matter how many of them she took down. Not only that, more units joined them one by one, leaving her to face down nearly 50 mana bears alone. But Ikusaba could not be shaken so easily. As she wielded her power without an end in sight, her heart was overflowing with something that was neither despair nor hope. Junko's abandonment taught her despair, and Junko's violence taught her hope. For Muko Ikusaba, who was never interested in the war, perhaps this little space before the school gates was a perfect world and a representation of her life itself. And so this infinitely disappointing girl who knew no other way of life danced alone to a song of hope, moving to the rhythm of despair. The heart of the computer room, Mana Bear Chamber. How much time had passed? The surveillance cameras installed at the gates were capturing the image of countless Mana Bears being felled by a veritable demon. The Mana Bears were multiplying by the minute, now numbering at 100, as they clamored to get their claws on Ikusaba. Most of them were moving automatically, programmed to react to Ikusaba's actions based on prior information of her movements. But despite the hundreds of mechanical enemies surrounding her, Ikusaba did not look the least bit afraid. Her movements, unhindered by injuries of any sort, was almost divine in sight. Although this also meant something about Sakura Ogami, who had been able to inflict an injury upon her arm. Ikusaba, as she was now, could potentially fight the super high school level wrestler to a draw without the use of firearms. Controlling the battleground in its entirety, it was It was as though Ikusaba had turned the entrance hall into a part of herself. She avoided attacks from behind as though she could see out the back of her head as she pierced through the Mana Bear's weak points. With the metal pipe, she parried every attack as though her skin was covered in eyes. She had already gone beyond the super high school level, breaking the boundaries of humanity and ascending to the level of a machine of violence incarnate. And despite understanding that incredible power in its entirety, Junko Enoshima, the mastermind, was not fazed. She did not even blink. There was nothing but despair inside her to begin with. In fact, the sight of Ikusaba trying to cause her despair almost endeared her to Junko. Junko despaired at the fact that she nearly fell prey to such thoughts and relished in the emotion. Junko understood full well that Muko Ikusaba was currently neither hope nor despair, but a simple phenomenon. She was but a disappointed girl who could not even understand her own emotions, turning to the only thing she could believe in, not force or strength, but violence. Ikusaba had turned into a humanoid disaster, like a storm or perhaps an omnipresent force like gravity itself. She was a machine designed to bring despair to Junko Enoshima. For some time, the mastermind enjoyed her sister go all out. Even if Ikusaba were to destroy everything before her and ruin her life, Junko would be satisfied by the despair. At least she entertained its thought for a moment, but despair-inducing nature, her easily bored personality reared its head. The smile she bore as she looked at the monitor vanished, replaced by a sudden look of calm. Junko reached for the microphone that connected directly to Mana Bear's speakers. Ikusaba was no longer human. Therefore, all Junko had to do was bring her back. With that simple yet despair-inducing thought in mind, the mastermind whispered into the microphone, "Sis." First floor gate, sis. The voice was calling to her. Mana Bear's voice felt to have been turned off. Junko Enoshima's voice was coming from one of the Mana Bear units, conveying her voice in its natural state to the entrance hall. Ugh, that one word was enough. With one magic word, the machine known as Muko Ikusaba regained her humanity. Mana Bear was not one to miss this chance. As though moving to the beat of Ikusaba's faltering movements, countless steel claws leapt towards her. Ikusaba allowed her instincts to lead her, twisting her entire body as she faced off against the attacks. She managed to stave off the assault with sustaining only a few cuts. Wait. But the despair was not yet at an end. The super high school level despair moved on to her next plan, not giving her older sister time to recover. Ikusaba-san, look out, what? The moment she heard that voice, Ikusaba's mind went blank. It was Makoto Naegi's voice, the cry that rescued her from Ganyu and changed her destiny. No, it took her a tenth of a second to her to deduce that Junko had merely replayed the sound clip from the surveillance camera that captured the scene. But that short amount of time was enough to drag the now human Ikusaba into despair. Just as she recovered from a moment of shock, one of the Monobear units leapt up from behind her and landed a roundhouse kick on her temple. Ikusaba reacted instantly, putting up a hand to dull the impact, but another Monobear flew in from the opposite side with a headbutt. And as soon as Ikusaba dodged that strike, she was hit by 3 simultaneous drop kicks from 3 units that were behind her and was thrown to the floor. Ugh, the fact that they were not using their calls meant that Junko was not planning to kill her immediately. And before Ikusaba could get up to take a fighting stance, the dozens of Monobears that waited for her on the floor clambered atop her, holding down each of her joints. Ikusaba helplessly lay face down against the floor as one of the Monobears walked up to her. Oop, boop, boop, boop. Isn't this exciting? I have a cute teenage girl at the mercy of countless me's. Don't give me that look. If I wanted to kill you, I could just go crazy with the guns up there. But our adoring audience watching us on TV won't stand for that. We're going to have to try this one more time. What are you going to do to me? Ikusaba asked blankly. Monobear trolled. Nothing really. I'm just going to let you take part in the school life of mutual killing like you did before. I'll erase everyone's memories and have them start off with introductions and the entrance ceremony all over again. Remaining in character as himself, Monobear leaned in towards Ikusaba's face. But we can't just keep things still and redo everything. This time you're going to participate as Muko Ikusaba. I'll erase huge chunks of your memories like I did to that annoying detective. You'll be some poor girl who's lost her memories, Monobear said, twisting his thigh. Behind him were the idle Monobear units, all trolling around in place to create a scene straight out of a fantasy. Monobear revealed his plan to Ikusaba. At first, you'll be the girl with memory loss, some poor unfortunate victim that everyone cares about. But as they delve deeper into the mysteries behind the school, they'll slowly find out more and more about you. And I can't wait to see how they're going to turn on you just like that. Then maybe you'll react without thinking, and I might end up having to change the rules about justifiable self-defense. Ooh, boo, boo, boo. No, you can't. Her memories will be erased. Although she could do little about her classmates' resentment, the prospect of losing even her childhood memories, the prospect of losing her connection to Junko was unbearable, in spite of Ikusaba's disinterest in the world. I've heard of things like New Game Plus, but I bet this is the first time I'll get to see a new game minus. I guess you could call this a handicap one. Or should I just make it even more masochistic? Forget hard mode, very hard, or hellfire. Let's go all the way up to impossible mode. For example, I could give you a breezy ride around the school with you hanging off the back of a motorcycle. Then you'll get bludgeoned by a million fungos, followed by a light burning at the stake, then a feathery crushing with a forklift before I erase your memories. Ikusaba had some idea of where these ideas were coming from. They were part of the tools they had prepared earlier for the students' executions. Everyone will start with self-introductions and find you, a bandaged flat chest girl with no memories and a fanball tattoo on her hand, walking through the halls. I bet there's freaks out there who'd go for that. If this were a game, we'd be quintupling ourselves. Monobel was talking in a joking tone, but Ikusaba had no doubt he was entirely serious. Her ears were already picking up the sound of an engine roaring in the distance. Now your chariot is on its way. From the distinctness of the sound, Ikusaba determined that it was the large-scale motorcycle that was supposed to be used for one of the executions. I'm bringing it from all the way in the punishment room, so you better be grateful. The roar of the engine drew near, like the footsteps of the Reaper closing in on his prey. Ikusaba wondered how the tiny monobel unit could possibly ride a vehicle that large, but she reminded herself that she was up against the super high school level despair. Junko would not let logic get in the way of creating despair, the despair which was inextricably entwined with Ikusaba's life and fate. Have I failed? I couldn't make Junko despair. I couldn't save Naegi-kun and the others. Her mind reached for conclusions in the form of questions, but she could not answer them yet. Not so easily. After all, she was still alive, though the rumbling of the engine approached even closer. Suddenly, Monobel froze, though the dancing units behind him continued their automatic movements, and in this anomalous moment, Ikusaba noticed something. The sound of the motorcycle suddenly came to a stop, then following the brief moment of silence was a veritable explosion of noise as the engine roared louder than could normally be possible and drew near at several times its prior speed. Seconds passed, and appearing before the gate was a gigantic motorcycle plowed through a group of monobels like a hunter stalking its prey. And riding the motorcycle was Mandowada. What? Ikusaba and Monobel were both taken by surprise by the turn of events, and instead of addressing them, Owada elected to ride the hijacked motorcycle towards Ikusaba. A split second before the tires were close enough to crush her, he raised the back wheel and turned the entire motorcycle with the front wheel as its fulcrum. The backside of the motorcycle swept clear over Ikusaba's back, knocking down the monobels that were holding her down. Hey, can you stand? Owada said, not entirely happy, but holding out a hand to Ikusaba nonetheless. Ikusaba took his hand and got to her feet, still confused. What are you doing, Owada? I almost had her. One of the Marabas said, not as himself, but as the hacker Bashiki Madoi. Oi, you said you were Madoi or something, right? Yes, so what are you doing with that terrorist? Hey, I ain't bragging about this, but I honestly don't have a flippin' clue which one of you is lying. Owada said, his face contorting, but see, I ain't the kind of punk who's gonna stand around and watch a girl get hurt. What are you saying? Calm down and think. This must be Stockholm Syndrome saying in. When a kidnapping victim begins to feel sympathy for the kidnappers, Manabel began trying to convince Owada, but Owada ignored him, took Ikusaba by the hand and pulled her onto the back of the motorcycle. Don't shut up. I don't know anything about stomach punch or stone cold or whatever. But don't go around thinking you can tell me what to do. Owada roared. The guns installed on the ceiling turned towards the motorcycle, but it sped away from the entrance hall faster than they could take aim. Countless mana bears leapt after them, their claws flipping through the air. Why? Ikusaba asked. Huh? Owada shouted, his voice more than a match for the noise coming from the engine. Don't get the wrong idea. I ain't doing this 'cause I trust you. His tone then dropped considerably, almost to a whisper. Don't know why, but for some reason, I felt like I could trust what he said. Who? Ikusaba asked. But Owada did not have the chance to answer. The unit leading the charge of mana bears had almost caught up to the motorcycle. The bears brandished their claws, moving in unison, as though they were the jaws of a great monster. Not a moment too soon, the motorcycle zoomed past a certain girl, a grand warrior who positively radiated fighting spirit, the strongest being on earth. With an unearthly battle cry, the super high school wrestler kicked off the floor. The school was soon enveloped by a noise that dwarfed even the volume of the motorcycle's engine. When Ikusaba looked back, Sakura Ogami was landing on the floor, sending countless mana bears flying dozens of yards away. Ogami? It was impossible to tell if Ogami had heard Ikusaba say her name, but she took a fighting stance, her breath calm as she held back the mana bears. Like a great guardian deity. I see nothing resembling the methods of a super high school level hacker in your pursuit. The roar emanating from her form filled the halls, the heat coming off her skin in a haze. It was a show of strength quite different from that of Ikusaba's, a power not of violence, but pure fighting spirit. In battle, Ikusaba froze the air around her, seemingly along with her perception of time itself. In contrast, Ogami distorted space itself with the heat of her aura, and this was the figure standing between the mana bears and the escaping motorcycle. Feeling the heat on her back, Ikusaba turned to look ahead. There she saw Yamada and Fujisaki, tentatively poking their heads out through the door leading into the dormitory building. Asahina and Ishimoto were also there, keeping watch with their feet firmly planted on the side of the school building. Once the motorcycle passed them by and arrived in front of the cafeteria, Owada slowed down the motorcycle and turned it to a stop. Around them were the other students, all of them barely looking at Ikusaba. But Ikusaba noticed two sets of eyes in particular that showed a different emotion. One set belonged to Kyoko Kirigiri, whose calm look never faltered, and the other belonged to the skinny boy Kirigiri was supporting on her shoulder. Naegi-kun? Ikusaba breathed, still see it on the back of the motorcycle. Naegi defeated the immense pain that was eating away at his entire body as he mustered a smile for her and repeated what he had said earlier. I'm glad you're not hurt, Ikusaba-san. Disappointingly enough, Muko Ikusaba could not achieve her hope of bringing despair to her sister, but instead, she succeeded in planting the seeds of hope in her fellow students. Okay.